All right. Hello once again. So this is going to be chapter 4, economic policy. Once again, we're going to try to get through it really quick. So in this chapter, or if you were to take a normal political science or government econ class at high school, it would be broken up like this. You do government one half, you do econ the other half. Okay. So this is usually a chapter that comes up for at least in our class at the college level, like towards the back end. Okay. And usually we've already kind of talked about some of this stuff. The main thing that you'll get from this chapter is learning a little bit about taxes, different types of systems of government, how it involves or how it interacts with the economy. And then usually I like to give a little bit of financial advice too, because I know most students they might not be financially literate, and believe it or not, most adults aren't either. So you should know what concerns we have when having a bigger government in terms of the economy and when having a smaller government. Okay. Um, Usually when having a bigger government, okay, it means that we have to expand and we have to contract the private sector a little bit more to solve some of our issues. So something that we do here in America. Usually expansion is going to occur during growth of population increase and high rates of economic growth. Now that is not happening in America right now. Okay, and remember the private sector is going to be incentivized by profit. So all these companies and corporations that you see, they're trying to provide goods, and then obviously us, the public, we're the consumers, and we are purchasing those goods. Okay, so we give a lot to what is actually valuable and not valuable in society or in the market at least. Now, times have changed now. Now, the reason why we have bigger government or more involvement with our government, more legislation, is because a lot of countries, not just America, by the way, have low rates of population growth, low rates of economic growth, and there's demographic changes such as an aging population. You can actually look at Japan, which is experiencing this right now. This almost same exact scenario. Okay, so this is a need for aging countries or countries that have already been developed for some time. Okay, now less government expansion is best for developing or growing countries. Okay, so this is when you have population increases, increases in productivity, and high rates of economic growth. Now, the two sectors that most countries get into in order to massively produce things at the economic level are going to be textiles and agriculture. Okay, so this is where you're going to see a lot of your sweatshops. Okay, it's the reason why all of us are able to, or some of us are able to go order off of Shein and the price is so cheap, or why our Nike shoes are being produced for like a few dollars. Okay, now you can't do that in a developed country because in a developed country we're going to be complaining about minimum wage and time off, and we are exploiting workers by using slave labor, but at the same time we're also providing them with an opportunity that they would not get economic wise because their economy or their market is so limited because they're a developing and a growing country. Now obviously this is something that's not sustainable. Politics in the market. You should know these basic definitions. The market is just going to be the economy. So you're going to see a lot of stuff right now. The market is down. Okay. So it's not the best time to maybe be involved with stocks right now. Or, well, best time to buy when the market is down. It's not really too good to sell or make money right now. Now, Wall Street. Okay. This is going to be the term that is used to. Um, for the financial sector, okay, I like to just think of anything that you can buy a stock in: the Tesla, the Apple, the Amazon. Okay, Main Street is going to be your small businesses, and both of these are essential for the economy because remember, we want to have a good balance and we want to have competition within our marketplace so there's no monopolies, which is something we talked about in chapter one. The Great Depression, this is going to be one of the first major economic downturn that we see in American history. And it actually comes after a big financial boom. Okay, so if you guys have read The Great Gatsby, obviously it talks about the Roaring Twenties. So this is right after the Roaring Twenties. So the stock market actually crashed in October of 1929, and this downturn led to factory changes, bankruptcy, unemployment, and we just at first we thought it was just a normal boom or bust business cycle, but then we realized, hey, this isn't normal. We kind of have to step in and fix something. Okay, obviously President Roosevelt's New Deal policies is kind of what got us out of this. Okay, um, before this though, we kind of took a back seat when it came to the economy. We figured it was a market that was just guided by this invisible hand. It'll figure itself out. Okay, and there's a couple times where we've been proven wrong. Okay, just some pictures, a couple graphs, some theorists and how they feel that the economy should work in relation to government. We followed more of like this Adam Smith, this free market model as this fair, which is just leave it alone, up until the Great Depression, and then now what we could say is we have more of this John Maynard Keynes. We have a mixed economy that's regulated and subsidized probably till today. Karl Marx is obviously key when it comes to socialism and communism, so we talked about him in the ideology chapter. We won't talk about him too much this chapter, so mainly Adam Smith and John Maynard Keynes. Okay. But once again, the Great Depression challenged this idea that we should just let the market figure itself out. Turns out we need government to actually expand and use its power to get us out of like a time of crisis. Now, Adam Smith wrote this book called The Wealth of Nations, okay? And in this book, he talks about mercantilism. So it's the theory that government should have directly managed, licensed economic activity for the good of the nation. So remember, leave things alone. But because government is involved with the economy, they kind of have to have some way or oversee it in a way where they're regulating, okay? But for the most part, they should be leaving the market alone because it's guided by this invisible hand that produces the right amount of goods, and people like to determine, or the consumers like to determine, what we think is valuable, what is not valuable, and companies, they should be looking to fill that need, okay? Now, John Maynard Keynes wrote his writing was The General Theory of Employment, Interest, and Money, and his theories actually influenced President Roosevelt's New Deal policies. Okay, and it was that we should be regulating the economy during these extreme booms and business cycles, and then also provide some economic stability for individuals. So we're not too worried about like we're seeing extreme high highs in our economy and then extreme lows. Okay, we want to kind of sit around like a middle ground for the most part. And this is just an old Instagram reel I used to show, talking about how the best time to purchase stuff or purchase a home was actually during the recession, which is around 2007, where kind of around a lot of the time where or the year where you guys were actually born. Now, the recession is actually one of the second major economic downturns we see in United States history, and it began late 2007. And once again, we just thought it was another stage of the regular business cycle, and then we realized this was like an all-time low. So, um, your textbook would say the recession has officially ended. Some people think it's been prolonged, and it actually we've seen some of the similar issues during COVID, and we're seeing them right now. We just never really fully recovered from this. Okay. Regardless, though, there's just been some lingering issues from the business cycle. Okay, and this kind of shows you the statistics of what was going on. This is what the IMF had concluded was the most severe economic and financial meltdown since the Great Depression, and it affected not only the United States but also a lot of countries who were invested in the U.S. Okay, so you see like record-breaking unemployment rates, our GDP goes down, the S&P 500 goes down, people are declaring bankruptcy, the housing market crashes. It wasn't the best time for us financially here in America. And you guys somewhat kind of seen similar things with COVID. So even though you don't understand what the Great Recession was really like, it was real similar to what we've seen with COVID. Okay, personal income. Okay, as a result of this, we realized that people are not financially literate. Okay, we also realized too that the government had to bail out the banks to make sure that our government doesn't fail because we're too reliant on our economy to be successful. Um, there's a clip on Canvas right now. It's in the modules. It actually is a Sesame Street clip, and it was a stream of videos that actually came out to teach people, or children at least, to be financially literate. Okay, because it turns out that most people don't teach their kids this, and then obviously everyone says, "Oh, well, we don't ever learn this in school." But to be honest, if we taught this in school, a lot of you guys would just fall asleep or hate it or wouldn't listen at all. Hopefully, though, you guys do become a little bit more financially literate and understand that it's better to save as much money as you can, invest as much money as you can into things like such like a Roth IRA, or if you understand the stock market and to spread your money around. It's all pretty important. I could sit here and give you like 30 minutes of financial advice, but I really want to just keep this video short. If you ever need any advice, you can always message me on Canvas, and I can kind of give you some basic things because I understand a little bit about finances, okay? More than I would say the average person does. Fiscal policy, this just is the use of government tax and spending powers to achieve policy goals. We actually seen fiscal policy with the government shutdown, okay? We couldn't agree on a budget. Now, we agree every single year on this annual budget. If we don't agree on this budget, guess what? We go into a government shutdown. Um, and deficit spending, you should know that this is when the government exceeds revenue and we're in the negative. So we're spending more money than we actually have. So remember, Sesame Street, the United States government, they expect you to be financially literate, but there's a lot of times where they spend more money than we actually bring in. Okay, and all of this is public information. You can see like, you know, how much money the United States has spent. You know, how the deficit has increased over time. How much money goes into our budget. Okay, obviously we put the most into the military with the budget, what we were discussing this past year, the main argument was how much money are we going to be putting into healthcare? Okay. And obviously, everyone always says, oh, we need to put more money into transportation, more money into healthcare, more money into education. If you look at the amount of money that we put, it's kind of embarrassing that we don't see like much better results. Okay. Like, how are we putting 43 billion into transportation and most of the roads have potholes, freeways are shut down, we don't have a high-speed rail, we have terrible buses, our subway systems aren't the best. Doesn't make any sense. How are we spending 107 billion in education? And this is from 2022, so these numbers have increased. How are we spending that much money and our kids here in America are still stupid? It's kind of mind-blowing. At least you can justify, hey, well, we spend this amount of money in military and we've never lost a war, technically. Okay. Um, just kind of some interesting things, and this is also frustrating too. And this deficit thing is not your fault. It's not my fault either. If you want to blame anyone, blame your grandparents. Okay. Over time, this deficit has kind of was somewhat on lowering, and then we decide to continue to overspend as a government, and then it's where we're at now, and no one wants to take the L. What we do is pretty much what um, the trend of double it and give it to the next person. That's what we're doing with debt. Okay, it's going to take some country, or it's going to take us as a country to either massively produce to get out of this trillions of dollars of debt, or we're going to have to cut back on some spending. And that's not really what people like to do, because remember, we don't want to live through some type of like financial crisis or a time where maybe government isn't taking care of the public as much. Okay, now taxes. Okay, what are the main reasons for them? Raise money, subsidize certain types of behavior. So like you guys' parents love you during tax season because you guys are all tax write-offs. Okay, um, and it encourages you guys to maybe have certain types of behavior. You donate to charity, guess what? That's a tax write-off. Okay, it also regulates behavior. Behavior that's not illegal, but we don't really like that people do them. So like gambling, there's gonna be taxes to it. Drinking alcohol, driving a car that's gas powered. Okay, there's gonna be some type of tax because we want to make sure we're regulating that type of behavior. Last thing is gonna be redistribution. This is just a simple thing or simple concept that during tax season, some people are paying money, other people are going to be receiving the check. Okay, and also taxes are kind of dumb. Just remember, we started a whole war and fought for our independence due to the amount that we're being taxed. And in today's world, you get taxed in every single area of your life. You keep your money in the bank, you're gonna get taxed. You spend it, you're gonna get taxed. You purchase a home, and if you can purchase a home and pay it off after 50 years, according to the new loans, guess what? You're gonna, even when that home's paid off, you still gotta pay property tax every single year. So no matter where you go, you can never escape taxes. Okay. You don't really need to know too much about this slide. Maybe the self-interest part. Just know that with capitalism, we incentivize risk taking, so borrowing money and trying to produce for the economy. Okay, now this is obviously an issue because it's no different than gambling. Okay, same way that that dealerships make money and banks make money, they are hoping that you cannot pay that loan back, and they're going to keep charging you interest on it. That is how they make, or they're going to repossess. Um, Whatever they gave you. Okay, they're going to take over your home. Okay, they're going to take over the car that you can't make payments on. Okay, so this is kind of one of the negative things that we see actually with our whole loaning or our interest when it comes to um, maybe when it comes to risk taking in the economy. There's another good video in your modules. It's a South Park clip. I think it's very funny. It shows Stan going and opening up a bank account, and it kind of shows maybe some of the issues that we have with our banking here in America. So that concludes chapter 14. So chapter 15 will come up later in the week. Hopefully you guys are doing good. Make sure we're getting all our quizzes done. Make sure we're turning our final draft that is due this Sunday. And yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. The last week, we have 2 more weeks in this class. This week, you should focus on that essay, focus on those quizzes. Next week, it will be your final exam, and we will be done for the semester. So you'll see one more of these videos, and then yeah, that's it. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Remember, I'm pretty easy to get a hold of on Canvas. I'll respond to you as fast as I can. And hopefully, you guys are still enjoying the class and lock in these last couple weeks because some people's grades need to kind of be worked on a little bit. Some of you guys are fine. You guys are just playing the, I hope my grade doesn't drop past an A. I hope it doesn't drop past a B. So if you're in that situation, congrats. Keep turning stuff in and you should probably be good. So um, hopefully you guys are well. Hopefully these videos help you out if you're still watching them because I've noticed the views have kind of gone down a little bit. So all right, I'll see you guys in the next one.